Hi, thanks for joining me. So before we get started on the mod, I'd like to partially disassemble this quickly so I can show you the nature of the problem that we're trying to solve. Now, these tri-shots are difficult to pump, difficult for the pump action. Well, partly because it's got heavy springs in there for firing 3 beepers at once, but there's also an issue with binding going on inside, and that's to do with the layout of the gun, the design of the gun, and of the materials that it's made from. So let me just pop the shroud off quick. Now I've loosened the stock enough to be able to pivot the shroud up. Now be careful when doing this because there is a catch just there. Now normally that's under spring tension, and when you remove the shroud it has a tendency to fly out across the room and then you lose your spring. So as you're lifting off the shroud, make sure to, when it's partially covered and it's held down by the shroud, just cover it with your thumb as you lift it off the rest of the way, just to guard from that happening. It won't happen for me because I've already removed it for ease of filming, but it looks like this. Yeah, so that'll go flying across the room and you probably won't find that again. So, right, now that we've got it apart, I can show you what the problem is. So, just here, you have the action bar. Now this goes all the way forward into the pump grip, and then when you pull back on the pump grip, it's pushing back on the action bar, and then that's pushing back on this piece here. Now I'm going to call that the piston block. You can see it in there, and that unifies the 3 pistons together, and it compresses against the springs. The springs are up near the top, just there. So you've got your springs pushing forward on this block from up here, but your action bar is pushing from down here, and overall that creates a twisting effect, and that wedges it inside of the body of the gun, and that's what's creating that binding. That's what's creating the drag when you're trying to cycle a pump action. The piece that I'm pointing to inside looks like this. This is a spare one I have. Now this block is made from fiber reinforced nylon plastic, I think, I'm pretty sure, and that it's very strong, but it's not very slick or slippery. It doesn't slide very well. So what tends to happen as you're pushing back on the pump is it'll twist like that, and then it'll wedge to a certain extent on these where it runs along the guide rails, but mostly along the top here, and that's sort of binding against the top edge on the inside. So really we're just going to be lining the top of this. Now, the material I've chosen for this is actually the bottom of a bean tin. I've cut some here already. So I'm going to be making a template out of paper, which will look something like this. And then that will be placed on the bean tin. We're going to cut out pieces of that to actually line the top. So if I show you with a template approximately how it fits, you can see that it sort of locates on that little notch that's cut out there. Whoops, that's difficult, right? And then it kind of folds over either end, like that. Now the idea behind that is that it grips itself on with those folds over either end. So there, you get the idea. And that will create like a barrier. That'll be the lining. So rather than this not very good, not very slick plastic binding on the top, we're going to have this metal. And this is steel. I don't recommend using aluminium can. I think it's too thin and it won't hold up. You need the ends of it where it bends over to be quite firm and secure. So yeah, I'll strip it down further and we'll go a bit further with the mod, and I can show you how you repair it, how you fix the issue. Okay, I've disassembled the shotgun off camera, but I've left these parts in just to show you again the difference between where the action arm is, action bar I should say, and where the spring is. That's the difference in height. But that's enough to cause that twisting effect. And if I lean it up as well, I can show you where that binding is happening. I can poke right in there. A little difficult with the light. It's this surface, but on the other side, sort of tucked underneath this area here. So that's the area on this that we're going to be lining. I'm not going to be pulling this out of the gun to do it, because I do have a spare one here which is nice and clean and not covered in grease. But the first step would be to make a template out of paper. And the template makes it a lot easier. And to start, for a good start with the template, cut a strip of paper 12 mil wide with decent amount of length. Just give yourself some excess. So place it against there for a moment and have a look at how far this little support piece at the top is overlapping, because you want to cut a long notch out the same width as that. So I'll just do that on camera for you. Let's go about there to begin with. So giving yourself a decent amount of length past there, because you want to fold the end of this down over the end. That looks about right, actually. Yeah, there you go. Now that's going to be your reference point. When you butt this up against that edge, that's going to sort of help to hold it in place and stop it from moving while you bend it. So next what you want to do is fold it over the end and then put a crease in it. That's going to indicate where your bend is going to go once you've cut the piece out of the metal. Do the same thing on the back, just with your thumbnail or a pencil or anything. And also, I tell you what, let's push it into there, and that'll give us an indication of where we need to cut this to allow for that shape there. Right, so that's the beginnings of our template. The next thing we have to watch out for is to make sure that where the ends are folded over, they don't interfere with this groove here, because that's where it runs along the guide rails. So I'll give that a little trim now. I'm just doing this as an example for how it's folded over the ends. I'll leave it to you to decide what you think is best and what's going to give you the most secure fit for this part. So that looks alright. That's clearing where the spring guide pokes through, and it appears to be clearing the, so that's also clearing the guide rails. That's fine, we're going to leave that as is. Now the same thing with the back. We've got a crease here. That's already established in there. We just got to make sure that it clears once it gets over this side. So let's give it a cut. Start off with that. Let's cut a little more. Okay. Yeah, and now I'm just going to cut it straight off by there to clear the guide rail. Little more trim. So that's it essentially. That's how you're going to make your template. You get the general idea. So you want to do the same for the other side. Make sure to take into account that little notch there as well. I forgot to mention that. So let's just cut a little strip off the side of there to account for that as well. Just trying to match the shape. That's it basically, yeah. Obviously take more care with it when you do it yourself. I'm just doing it quickly for the sake of the video. So do the same for the opposite side, and then you're going to want to use a glue stick or whatever, double-sided tape, whatever suits you, just to transfer those templates then onto your metal. Now I've checked this with a micrometer, and the thickness of this steel is 0.19 mil. So 0.19 mil, quite thin. So just letting you know the measurement in case you wanted to use steel shim stock. It's up to you. But that's essentially all it is. It's just thin sheet steel. So once you transfer the marks onto that and cut around them, use that reference point again on the steel piece, which should match this shape. Press the notch up against there with the steel and then bend it the same as you did the paper. Now you're going to want to use something like a pair of pliers with a hard edge, or just anything to press that over without obviously damaging your hands. Preferably use a bit of wood, like a popsicle stick or tongue depressor. Use something like that, because then you're not going to scrape or scratch the metal once you're doing it. So anyway, once you've done that, you're going to end up with pieces that look like this. There's some I made earlier. So I'll place them on there now. And check that's the right one. That's the wrong one. So if I place these on, you'll see that they fit in exactly the same way that the paper ones did. So I'll give you a little look at that. In this case, when I did mine, I didn't bother to make it match that notch there. I just left it in a straight line. You might want to do it differently. I found that this works fine. It's up to you. But essentially, that is what you are doing there. Of course, if you wanted to, you could use a glue to hold these down. Just remember to thoroughly degrease both surfaces and then use an adhesive to hold them together. I found that they hold on just fine from the clamping force of the bends on either end. But essentially, that's your mod done. So I'll transfer these back onto my actual piece here, and you'll see that they fit just fine because these parts are identical. So if I pull them off there, let's just... Right, here we go. So same thing again, same side for same side. Oh, he says, and then puts them on the wrong side. There we are, right. There, fits the same as it did on the piece that we were working on just now. And I'll show you them in the actual gun so you can see that they don't interfere with anything once they're in there. There you are. So now, rather than just the bare plastic rubbing against this, you've now got the metal guarding this plastic from this more abrasive plastic. That's basically it. That's the general idea. And it works immediately. Like even just pressing up on it and moving it back and forth, you will feel the difference. So if you were to take these off and then put this back in and give it a little upward pressure with your thumb while moving it back and forth, and then put them back in and try it again, you'll notice the difference right away. So re-grease it, put some more silicone grease back on these surfaces where these will be running, re-grease the rails and reassemble, and you're done. And you should notice your pump action is a lot smoother right away. It'll still have that same kind of feeling of binding as you're pumping the action, but it'll be a lot less. So, because essentially the mechanical action that's causing it to bite is still happening, because regardless of the mod, your action arms are still down here and your spring's still up there. That's just how it is. But this will help it a lot. If the manufacturers were to change something, I'd like to see them changing this material. Now, I don't know if making it out of a more slippery material would compromise the strength. I don't know if the reason that they use this stuff is because they use heavier springs than the original Tokyo Marui did. I don't know. But I imagine if you used a better material, if the manufacturer used a better material to make these, this would slide a lot better. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope it helps, and please let me know in the comments how you got on if you did do this mod. So cheers, have a lovely day.